I say with some confidence that I am closing in on the 1.0 release of this dang snowboarding game that I've been working on for what feels like just short of forever. This is not the video about that 1.0 release, unfortunately, but this new version that I'm going to walk you through does have some really cool updates that I want to share. I tend to break these game releases and the videos about those releases into some kind of milestone, and each milestone has to have a theme, sort of like a North Star that I'm shooting for with each iteration. This time out, my target was replayability. How can I provide an experience to someone that puts into their brain the idea that they want to play the game again? So they've played through it once, but they saw something or experienced something during that play session that they think, dang, I would like to try that again. Now, obviously, the mechanics need to be fun enough. If it's not fun, they're not going to play it again. There's not much I can do about that except try to make it fun. But what other sort of game elements can I include to make someone feel like, oh yeah, I want to do this again because I saw that thing and I'm curious now. I want to know what that's all about. The answer this time out was to implement level branching, which means you're not just traveling through a linear sequence of levels or courses, but you're given a choice at the end of each course so that the player can kind of hack their own way down the side of this imaginary mountain. And with each branch that they take, with each choice that they make, it sounds like a Police song, it means they're making a conscious decision to ignore the other branch. And my hope is that that will be enough to make them want to try again and explore the other parts of the game. So I'll talk all about the different changes that I made that allow level branching to come together. But first, hello there. My name is Eric. This channel is where I delve into the sunken temples of game mechanics to hopefully extract some sort of ancient wisdom that can power my own indie game projects. This is Radical Slice. All right, so what do we got here? Well, the biggest thing this time out is actually not related to level branching. Surprise. It's the addition of music. A fellow indie dev, Mabbees, reached out to offer to make music for the game this time. You're hearing it under the video now, but let me stop talking for a few seconds so that you can enjoy just the music. One thing that is quite unique about this project is how the boosting mechanic relates to changes in music. I expect people to be shifting back and forth between boosting and not boosting pretty frequently, so I didn't really want to interrupt and restart the music each time there was a state change of boost, not boost, etc. So Mabbees was kind enough to write two versions of the main theme song, and the boosting version plays an extra sound channel with some extra chords when the boost is happening, and when the boost stops, that channel drops out. I think the stereotypical example of something like this from gaming history is how in Super Mario World, the music will play an extra percussion track when Mario is riding Yoshi versus when Mario is not riding Yoshi. It was actually really cool to see music trickery like this implemented in a Pico 8 title, and I'm really stoked with how it turned out. Mabbees actually wrote two different songs that we could choose from for this project, and the one we settled on was titled Sunshine on the Mountain. I asked Mabbees if he wanted to share a few notes about his songwriting process so that I could include them in this video, and he went one better than that and just wrote an entire blog post instead. So I'll put a link to that in the description, but let me excerpt a couple of points here as well. He says the song is loosely Super Mario Kart inspired, which I think you can hear if you give it a listen. And in his blog post, Mabbees calls out how the song has, quote, groovy little bass fills at the end of phrases, a B section harmony, end quote, as well as a rhythm in half clave. So he describes half clave as sounding like it's always going forward, which makes it a good fit for this kind of game. He goes into some depth in his blog post, and I really recommend you check that out for more details and just a great explanation of how the various parts of this song fit together. You can also check out more of Mabbees' music over at mabbees.bandcamp.com, link in the description. He also makes Pico 8 games. Respect, fellow Pico 8 dev. His current project, Tomodachi 8-in-1, is over on itch, link in the description. Thanks again to Mabbees for all the hard work on these tunes. I really think his work adds a ton to the game, and it was a cool experience for me to integrate someone else's work into one of these Radical Slice projects. So that's the big thing out of the way. What else is in this version? I already spoiled it. It's level branching. Most of the changes from this version do relate to level branching stuff. I sort of started with the idea that I wanted to branch, and then I figured out what the prerequisites were to make that happen. So let me step through them. To start, levels have names now. I kind of felt like this is a precondition for doing level branching because I just thought it would be more fun to choose between levels called like Solar Run and Scoopsylvania rather than choosing between two levels called F and G. I mean, no disrespect to the Darius series, I love the Darius games, but usually courses on a mountain do have names, and so I wanted to replicate that for the game. For inspiration, I actually looked up some ski resort maps, like real life ones, and saw the kinds of names they pick for courses, and then I just did that. Levels that have really clear aesthetics, like In the Weeds, were pretty easy to name, while some others were a little bit more arbitrary, but I still feel like even the arbitrary ones are more memorable than just letters or numbers, so I'm happy with how this turned out. We've also got not one, but two new levels. This was also necessary for level branching because if I only have 3 or 4 levels, the branching, there's nowhere to branch to. So I also did, though, have some mechanical ideas that I wanted to explore and that I wanted the player to explore, and isolating those ideas to individual levels felt like the best way to do that. My last video was pretty focused on the design of the In the Weeds level, that green one. If you're curious about that, please check it out. I do go into some depth about level design and the changes I had to make to my level engine in order to accommodate it. The other new level is called Improbable, because as you can see, you do spend a lot of time going uphill on your snowboard. Obviously, not very realistic. It's goofy, but it teaches a mechanical lesson, or it attempts to. See, in this game, whether your board is angled to the surface that you're landing on after a jump can impact your speed. And if you wait until the last minute to tap the D-pad and adjust your board's angle, like the last second before you hit the ground, you'll get a little speed boost. But what happens if the surface that you jumped off of is the same angle as the surface that you're going to land on? Your board is already at the correct angle. This does happen in the normal course of the game when you have, a series of ramps that you're traversing. So I wanted to expose that situation very obviously and repetitively, hoping that the player would be forced to think about it and reckon with it. The solution is actually pretty easy. You just tap the D-pad immediately before you hit the upward face of the next ramp. It won't change the angle of your board on screen, but the button press does register and you still get the boost. And to me, it still feels satisfying to time the button press and see the resulting player flash and get the speed boost, and you get that satisfaction of like, oh yeah, I did it. I timed my button press correctly. I'm playing a game. Finally, with all that in place, we can talk about level branching itself. At the end of each level, you get 2 choices on which level to tackle next. On the level end screen, holding either up or down selects the next level. You can't do the levels in a single run. You can't do all of them. You've got to play at least twice to catch them all. So doing this hold to select input method and triggering the level branching itself was pretty fun. And let me sidetrack briefly to explain how that all works. Get your diagram hats on, we're going in. In order to get level branching done, we have a whole bunch of different entities that are interacting with each other. So let me draw all of the things at play, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, so here are all the different things that are interacting with each other. We've got our main game loop, which is doing all of our logic. We've got our player input, represented by this janky controller. We have two buckets, we'll call them. One that is keeping track of the player holding the up on the D-pad. The other is keeping track of the player holding down on the D-pad. And we have our two possible next levels. Branch 1 is coin flip, branch 2 is in the weeds. The game loop has a few things that it needs to do. One is it needs to check player input, to check for up and down. If the player's holding up and down, we need to update our buckets. Then it's going to check the bucket levels. And then if bucket is high enough, we choose the next level. The game loop is going to execute every frame, and this happens 60 times every second. That's why it's a loop. It happens over and over again, 60 times a second. We then check the controller to see if the player is holding up or down. We check, and if the player is holding up, we'll add some value to the up bucket. And let's say, for the sake of argument, to simplify things a little bit, we're going to add 0.01 points, whatever, to the up bucket every frame that the player is holding the up key. So if the player is holding up for the first frame, the bucket starts empty. We add 0.1 when they hold up, and then we check the bucket level. And we want to target say is greater than 1.0. And that's kind of our target level for where the bucket should be. So after one frame, if the player is holding the up key on the D-pad, and we've only added 0.1, the bucket is only about this full. So nothing happens here. We haven't reached our threshold of 1.0, so the game loop's not gonna choose the next level. The reason is we want the player to hold down the up key for some number of frames. In our example, it's just gonna be 10 frames, really short, to fill this bucket up. And then if the bucket is totally filled, that's when we choose the next level, right? So the first frame, we've added 0.1, bucket is not full yet, we go to the next frame. Now let's say in the second frame, we check again, checking again. The player is still holding up. Great, we add one more. So we've added another 0.1, now we're at 0.2. Obviously, these drawings are not to scale. Bear with me. So again, we're gonna check the bucket levels. 0.2 for the up bucket, 0 for the down bucket. Neither of those is 1.0, so we're gonna execute again. Now let's say, for our next frame, the player is not holding down any input. In this case, the player is not holding down up or down, so we're not going to add any value to the up bucket, we're not going to add any value to the down bucket. However, while the player is not holding anything down, this bucket, this up bucket, is actually leaking. I didn't tell you that, but it's a leaky bucket. So at the beginning of the frame, we started at 0.2 in the bucket. We're going to leak a little bit, so this is going to actually decrease now. And we're going to be back down to 0.1. So we lost our last frame of input. Now in the next frame, same thing. The player is not holding up, they're not holding down. We're not going to add anything to our up or down buckets, and this bucket continues to leak. So now we're right back down to both buckets being empty, and there's nothing here anymore because the leaking is finished. There we go. So now both buckets are empty. What happened was the player held down up on the D-pad for 2 frames. We started to fill our bucket, and the player let go of the up key. Our bucket leaked, we went back down to 0. So nothing happened, there was no state change. The bucket was a little bit full, but then it emptied itself out again. Now let's say, on the next frame, the player has now changed their mind and would like to go to in the weeds, the level indicated by the down branch. So in this case, we're adding 0.1, not to the up bucket, but to the down bucket. Add 0.1. So here we're just going to add a little bit of water to our bucket. And we're going to check to see if the level of the bucket is above 1.0, and it is not, because we've only been holding it down for 1 frame. We've only added 0.1 to the bucket. So we move to the next frame. The player remains committed to the downward branch. They are still holding down. We're going to add 1 more. 0.01 to this bucket. Now we're at 0.2. One more frame happens. The player has decided they are moving down to in the weeds. We're gonna add one more. We're at 0.3. Thank God 2 and 3 are similar shapes. I didn't have to scribble out that 2. I could just draw over it. So you can see what's happening here. Each frame that the player holds down on the D-pad, we gradually increase the level of this bucket until they've held it down for some fixed number of frames. In our case, that's 10. And we cross over the 1.0 threshold. I guess actually that would be 11 frames, but whatever. 10 plus frames, they've held down the same key. So now our bucket is filled. And because the player didn't release the down key, there was no leakage. No leakage happened. The bucket filled up. So we're actually able to execute this fourth step, which is every frame, as the game loop checks the bucket levels, at last, the down bucket has been filled, so we can execute step 4. If bucket full, choose next level. The game loop selects in the weeds, branch 2. If the player had remained holding the up on the D-pad, we would have instead gone to this branch, but that did not happen. So you can see here this leaky bucket metaphor I think is quite apropos. As the player is holding down a key, we're adding some points or score to the respective bucket. If the player releases the key, the bucket leaks, all the liquid is gone, and we don't make a decision about what the player wants to do until one or the other bucket has been filled. So that's how level branching with held down input has been implemented in this game. I hope that was a good visualization. And that brings this version to a close. I've already made my table of planned features. It's ready. I've prioritized everything just like a good employee. So I'm gonna smash through all these, and hopefully the next time you hear from me will be when this thing is done, in inverted commas. By which I mean, I feel like it's complete enough that I can put it out into the world and let people mess around with it. I'm excited about the next feature set too. So as they say in Nintendo Directs, please look forward to it. I'm gonna be showing off some cool stuff next time. For now, I just want to thank you so much for giving this video your time and attention. You could be anywhere on the internet right now, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Don't forget to check out the links in the description for all of Mabbees' work. I have been Eric. This has been Radical Slice. I will catch you all again soon.